It's time for the Access of Easy podcast, the weekly technology digest that keeps you ahead of the curve. Brought to you by EasyDNS.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Access of Easy podcast. This is the audio sidekick, audio compendium. I'm just seeing my hair in the camera here for the first time in several hours. It looks like I just came from the gym. I didn't. I did go to the gym this afternoon. Anyways, all that aside, thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming back. Make sure you sign up for the Access of Easy newsletter, accessofeasy.com. All the best in data breaching, overreaching. And with me here, as always, to talk about the latest and I guess not greatest, but most important in data breaching, overreaching is Len. What's going on, buddy?
I'm not overreaching. I'm all right, man. And here I am wearing my wonderful bomb thrower shirt. Thank you to Mark for supplying that. I'm not sure if he has any for sale, but if he does, I would recommend people out there to buy it. This is a really nice shirt. But yeah, man, everything is good. Starting to gear up for the winter months and watching what's going on in politics over here. Lots of drama and keeping me occupied and entertained at the same time. How are you, Joey?
I'm good, man. Winter, yeah, gearing up. I'm a little disappointed when we first got my new dog Moose about a month ago now. Going outside for a pee was no big deal in the middle of the night, Len. Now, although he doesn't go out nearly as often as he did, 3-4 weeks ago, you got to get your bundle on, man. You got to get your coat. You got to get your gloves. You got to have the flashlight out. It's freezing, and he's faster than he was 3 weeks ago. So make sure you got him on a leash too. Not that pleasant.
If you think that's a pain, the child is even worse.
Great.
Every 2 hours after it is born, he, she, whatever it is, it's just wake up, eat, finish eating.
Why are you? I thought people were delivering babies now, right? They're not assigning a gender till later in life, as is the
I'm only basing it off my
medical establishment. I thought, isn't that commonly accepted practice now? No,
I don't know. I can only base off my experience and how it was. Okay. And Serena's 10, so maybe things were a little bit different at that time. And yeah, when she was born, no questions were asked about this or that, and it was just, we just moved on and did our thing. So, and yeah, man, if you think the dog is a challenge, especially when he's a pup, man, the child, it is a real challenge. And you know what? It's it's being breastfed. Just going off. This is going on to the weeds here. It's really, really challenging for the mom because she's the one that's going to have to do it unless
she's off work anyways, buddy. If you just had a kid,
still hard, man. You don't get your sleep. You wake up every 2 hours to do the thing, and somehow you have to go back to sleep. You never get into REM sleep. If you do, it's just for a brief moment, and you rinse and repeat and do this. And for people who have twins or more, I don't know how a mother can do that. That's got to be one of the most challenging times in somebody's life, and I give those people a lot of credit for doing that.
A big shout out. Okay, so that said, last week's quote, I guess. Last week's quote from the wild Irish slums of the 19th century Eastern Seaboard to the riot-torn suburbs of Los Angeles, there's one unmistakable lesson in American history. A community that allows large numbers of young men to grow up in broken families, never acquiring any stable relationship to male authority, never acquiring any set of rational expectations about the future. That community asks for and gets chaos. That's from Daniel Patrick Moynihan. Several correct answers, but we're giving it to Thomas. Congrats, Thomas, on your efforts there. This week's quote, Len: your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. And that's, you tell me who it's by, listener, viewer. You know the deal. Put in the comments. No searching, no Googling, all that good stuff. And if you win, you get your next renewal 50% off. You can't beat it. So, Len, with that out of the way, shall we dive into the latest and greatest? As always,
correction. It's not 50% off. It's the first person who posts the correct answer gets their next domain and or hosting renewal on them.
Free,
so it's 100%.
Our discount code on the other show is 50% off.
Yeah, so we just basically made this 50%, no, actually 100% more efficient. So you definitely want to do it now.
Sorry about that, everybody. Between the lack of sleep from your twins and now you got to pay for your domain hosting, things are not good for you.
Yeah, let's just dive right into this because we could talk about the government of Canada, and they just announced a ban for the use of applications WeChat and Kaspersky. Kaspersky. I've never used it, so I have no idea.
Antivirus program, no?
Yeah, but I never use it. It's just, no needs for me to.
This
so anyways,
was into the weeds here a little bit. When I was in university and torrenting was like big for the first time for people my age, this is like 2004 or 5. Everyone either had ESET NOD 32 is the antivirus program of choice, or Kaspersky, because those were always the ones at the top of all the torrent sites. And so everyone was running one or the other. That's the only reason I know that. That's a long time ago, though.
Well, it's that knowledge is applicable to this one, because those two applications, they're no longer able to be installed on government-issued mobile devices. So that Kaspersky thing, it's actually an application, antivirus app for a phone. But we'll just talk about it, exactly what it is in a second. The reason why that these are no longer available for phones is because it's saying that it's because of security concerns, and this is for the Canadian, the government of Canada issued mobile devices. For those unaware, WeChat, and that's the Chinese instant messaging and social media and mobile payment app that's developed by Tencent, right? So they're publicly traded, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
And Kaspersky is the Russian cyber security company that provides antivirus software. And this is thought to be both of these apps that they're providing information to their respective governments. So this new compliance order that just came out into effect on October 30th, and the chief information officer from Canada was actually quoted as saying that installing these apps present an unacceptable level of risk to privacy and security. And that's not just to the individual, but that is for the government as a whole. And the problem that the government has is that the data that could be gathered on each of these apps, which apparently provide what they call considerable access to the phone, and this could be used to send information back to the mothership. And this isn't the first order that's been done like this. The government of Canada also banned the usage of TikTok on phones, on government-issued phones, earlier this year. And they did so under the reason of trying to prevent cyber attacks. Okay. Really, with all these things, I have no concerns with this order. It's the government's phones. They could do whatever they wish with it. And, this move does make sense. If these apps can be a backdoor to getting access to potentially sensitive government information, then it makes sense you want to close that door. But then a couple of questions come up. Will they do the same thing to other apps out there?
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, Facebook, Google Apps, just to name a few. There's a bunch of others out there. People are aware that these applications are also harvesting information, right? And we hear all these similar stories out there that people, they're just walking around talking about something, and then later they check their phone and they realize on the app that they're using, it's search something that I was talking about. Not.
I love the explanation they give for that too. It's like, oh, well, you were in the same geographic area as someone else who was buying catnip or something. And like, I don't fucking believe that.
Yeah, it cannot be a coincidence, right? These devices and their apps, they are snooping on us, right? There's no doubt about it. Yeah. But also the second question I have is, why are government employees even installing these apps? If the phone has access to sensitive information, shouldn't these phones be locked down considerably to prevent the installation of just about any app that's non-work related? But that's just me. But looking at this, again, I have no issues with them blocking this stuff. I just hope they go further, because it only makes sense. If you're going to block some applications, you should block a heck of a lot more, because there are a bunch out there. They're harvesting data, and you don't know if it's going to be information they're stealing from the government and where it's being sent to. So there's a lot of questions I have. They should go even further, in my opinion.
Saying the quiet part out loud, right? Like you're mentioning it, I think, in plain terms that everyone can understand. If it's data harvesting you're concerned about, there's apps that are doing a lot more data harvesting than these guys are, at least the same amount. The question I have is, why not just say that you don't want the Chinese government invading government phones? I don't think that's taboo to suggest that the CCP is looking to find inroads into other first world democracies, right? It's not really uncommon that people, know this. I think everyone understands this to be the case. It's like the entire basis of their kind of soft power, brokerage overseas, if you can even call that soft power, maybe hard power these days. But anyway, I digress. Other thing, Len, one of the things I know for sure about government phones, and I think even like my personal phone will do this, and your personal phone may as well. You can now set up, what do they call them? They call them personas or profiles, I think. where you're right. So you're nodding. You can like split your work and put a wall, like a data wall between your work stuff and your personal stuff if you want. Right. So even if you were one of these people who work for the public service and wanted to put personal stuff on your phone, why not employ that tactic? The answer in my view is simple, because they didn't get trained to use it. Much the same way as these guys are getting picked off by, phishing emails every week, or like giving away Teams user info every week, or whatever the Microsoft suite is called these days. They're also not giving the appropriate training on this stuff. I think that's fair to say, don't you?
Yeah, that would be one way, but it could be a placebo effect. Could you guarantee by creating one of these separate profiles guarantees that the information is not being flowed through them?
I tell you what, the separate profiles thing in terms of guarantees is somewhere between Mighty Putty and Flex Tape. I'll tell you, that's probably where it comes down, somewhere in there.
So in the reality that just doing it is just a false hope that something is being done to prevent the user
have you ever seen that Flex Tape commercial? I was watching football on Sunday, and this commercial comes on, and I tweeted about it after. I'm like, I cannot have just seen that. That must have been a fever dream. It's this guy basically claiming that he bought the frame of a speedboat and just filled it in with this tape. And then they got this like really, I think anyway, it's really poorly generated like CGI video of this guy cruising the water in a speedboat made of tape. It's honest to God, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Joey, it reminds me of the Mythbusters episode where they actually made a floating boat, and I'm not kidding, out of duct tape, and it floated. It floated for a while. It was fine. So it was not this Flex Tape. Use duct tape. That thing could do anything. I swear,
original that was duct tape aficionado, right?
I like if it was around in 1914. I'm pretty sure they could have used that to salvage the Titanic. Just slap that guy on, and I don't mean to actually make fun of it. Unfortunately, a lot of people lost their lives in that incident. But anyways, let's move on, and we'll talk about let's discuss something called Do Not Track, DNT, and I want to talk about the legal status of this DNT, the Do Not Track, in the EU. And a German court ruled that the DNT is a valid way for people to exercise their legal rights under the EU General Data Protection Regulation. That's the GDPR. So DNT is a browser setting that allows users to opt out of being tracked by websites. It was originally developed by the World Web Wide Consortium, the W3C, back in 2009. But it's never really had widespread adoption by websites. In 2019, though, the German court ruled that the DNT is a valid way for people to exercise their legal rights under the EU GDPR. And the GDPR is a data protection law that gives EU residents ultimate control over their personal data. This all leads to LinkedIn, and this is the star of the story here. As the court has come to the conclusion that they too, that LinkedIn must follow the law and respect the do not track signals sent by the user's browsers. It has since been revealed that LinkedIn is not doing what they should, and their website displays info that they are still engaging in tracking and analyzing and marketing for purposes. They're tracking the data for analyzing and marketing purposes. And this is typical collection of information and sell it off. You are the product in this business model. And all this is the result of the Berlin Regional Court, because they have since then banned LinkedIn from automatically making user profiles publicly visible when they first create an account. This is quite the slap on the wrist. So essentially now they basically said every new profile, it's no longer, it's going to be publicly available, publicly visible. You just have now new users have to change a setting to make it publicly visible. But all this I have to say is screw LinkedIn for these garbage business practices. Their product clearly is big enough that people have to rely on it to find work. And it could be a very important tool, especially now in a high inflation economy and the tightening job market. It's very, very important to a lot of people. All this means is that people don't have many alternatives these days and will likely still use their service, even though their information, their data is being poached against their will. Shame on you, LinkedIn. Never forget, I'm telling people out there, never forget, when the time comes and you don't need their service, delete your account, give them the middle finger. There will be an opportunity in the future. You may need it for now, but when it's time, give them the middle finger.
You know what the most surprising part of this story is? That LinkedIn is somehow using enough like data trackers that this became an issue for people who are who found themselves being tracked by the app, I guess, or the browser. Like, is there any apps left, Len, that are not really just sort of data harvesting apps to sell you ads? What is left out there that's not that?
There's, a good question. I can't think of any.
If I look at my phone here, I'll tell you what's on my home screen. Okay, we got the podcast app. We need that one. Like Wealth Simple, I'm pretty sure tracks me. YouTube for sure. WhatsApp for sure. Substack, maybe, I don't know. Discord, 100%, probably knows my social security number. Couple of banks. Snapchat, probably. Reddit for sure. Yahoo Fantasy, I don't know. Sleeper Fantasy, I don't know. Twitter for sure.
If an option exists, you could use some open source alternative.
Yeah, but Apple doesn't allow a lot of FOSS stuff in the App Store. To Apple's credit, they what they do is they try and make sure that the apps can't track you outside of certain things, right? So Facebook, for example, when I put Facebook on my phone for Marketplace, one of the first warnings it gives you, and LinkedIn may be similar, I'm not sure, is this app wants to track your activity outside the app. So your browser activity, your whatever, right? LinkedIn, I get, there's benefits, I suppose, to having some of these like cookies placed on your browser or attached to your profile or whatever, because you are looking for certain things related to your qualifications, your experience, your location, blah, blah, blah. But the whole point of the law is to allow people out of it. And I can't believe I'm saying this, I'm sort of siding with the state here for once. You got to listen to these guys. Like, your data is the most important thing about you these days. It used to be something else, I'm sure, but in the last 10 or 12 years, you've really seen a move. And I'm not the first person to say this. Data is the new oil. To me, it's inexcusable. How come there's no, fine, right? Where's the fine being levied here? Banning this sort of thing is not enough. I guess maybe the next offense you might see a fine, but I'd prefer to see some penalties levied here.
Banning and outright banning would be really. It would hurt their citizens, the citizens of Germany, more in a short run. In the long run, probably would benefit them. But keep in mind, remember, the job market is tight. Prices of everything's going up. People have to look for additional work. And so you're using LinkedIn to help achieve an ability or get more work and more money coming in. So it's a fine line, man. So I guess slapping them on a wrist and forcing them to make all new users not visible to the public, that's the proverbial slap on the wrist. And I guess, right? Like, how crap it. Whatever. Let's move on. We'll talk about a Canadian parliamentary committee, and this is the House Ethics Committee, to be specific. They're recommending that tech giants should be held responsible if they are found sharing anything deemed as misleading or misinforming people online. And this all led up from an investigation for what the political opposition is calling as foreign interference from the 2019 and 2021 general election. And the House Committee, the House Ethics Committee, also reports that the creation of a new foreign agent registry will help improve measures to combat online misinformation. I have nothing much else to say about this because this is still being investigated, and hopefully they'll get to the bottom of all this, but should there be anything to find? But that's all I got to say. That's just more factual than anything else. And if anyone want to draw conclusions here, they could do that.
Wasn't there another attempt to create a foreign agent registry in the not too recent past that wasn't as successful? There wasn't there?
I think this is what you're talking about, unless there's something else that I totally forgot.
No, I think it was related to these CCP police stations that popped up around the country over the last 20 years. Remember? And
isn't this part of it?
It may be, but one of the things my radar is up here because I think that, like, in your opinion, when you see stories like this, does this strike you as something that has traction, or something that's kind of just being like bandied about, leaked, et cetera, to make people think that something is being done and then nothing is actually, achieved? That's the thing. I'm always, maybe it's just my cynicism with the press and the media, but when I see stuff like this, I always think, it's awfully convenient to leak this at this moment, and it'd be more convenient to not do anything with it down the road, right?
It would take some time to move forward with the recommendation, the creation of the new registry, the rollout of it, and it's not going to be instantaneous. It will take some time to do it.
Yeah.
Well, and the question then even a secondary question I would have after that is, will it be done in time for the next election? Because the next election theoretically could be tomorrow or as late as October-ish 2025. So
right.
I don't know. This is all, this is open and transparent, right? This is a House committee that's talking about it, and there's a recommendation. Now, they don't have to follow this recommendation. The government doesn't have to do it. They have the prerogative not to. Now, if they choose not to, they'd have to give a rationale why. That way, it would satisfy, hopefully, because it's a minority government, the people in the House. But not only that, the citizens at large, because they're the people that put everybody in charge over there. So it's hard to say if it's just lip service or anything. Really, it's just a recommendation. And let's see if the government acts upon it. And if not, why not? Because you got to give them the benefit of the doubt here. Because
you kind of know why. Like, if I had to guess which way this was going to go, I think I'm fairly certain. We'll talk about this in 8 more weeks. It'll come up again, and we'll see where it is.
Oh, let's move on. We could talk about a new bill that's being introduced in the United States, and that's for the purpose of regulating the use of facial recognition technologies. And this is going to be used by law enforcement agencies. And this type of tool can be extremely powerful to help solve and maybe stop crimes. And this comes at a steep cost, right? Like, let's be honest. And that cost is going to be privacy, which may impose on individual civil liberties. So while this may be advantageous to law enforcement, it isn't perfect too. This whole system here, it could be misidentifying people. Mm-hmm. So that's troubling. So given what's at stake, maybe it's a time we should be reflecting on moving forward and what's the best course of action. People's reputation, if it's misidentified, can take a hit. Like, imagine you come home and you find out your neighbor is getting arrested by the police because he was misidentified by this facial recognition technology. Later, he may be cleared from all this because he didn't do anything, but there's still always going to have this stigma attached to him that he was nabbed by the cops. So somebody's reputation could be negatively impacted just because this software isn't perfect and it's misidentifying people. So the deployment of this tool is something that for me is very concerning. How it's going to be used, what it's going to be used for, it's very intrusive. Another thing, how long are they going to keep the information on file? Is it indefinitely? Like, there's so much here I don't like. A lot of tracking, a lot of data harvesting. I just hope they just shelve this and they don't go ahead with it. But I think I might be in a minority. A lot of people are out there in the United States. There's a lot of crime going on here. And if they could sell this as a way to reduce crime, I think a lot of people will say, yeah, let's go ahead with it. And what's the cost? Well, your privacy.
100%. I'm encouraged by the one pager that I see here on the website. I'm just wondering, like, why, who's deciding where these lines are? Like, in when it comes to all things sort of like digital ethicism, there's always like some committee, some group, some think tank that comes up with, the lines in the sand. Where should they be? And so a couple of them here I'm curious about, like, limits law enforcement use of FRT, facial rec technology, to situations when a warrant is obtained that shows probable cause that an individual committed a serious violent felony. Well, what if they stole my car and I got it on my Ring camera, but you won't look at that? Like, in my opinion, that's not a violent felony, but there's more likelihood that you'd catch the guy, given that I can give you, the video, you can use the FRT on my video and hopefully catch the dude, right? Like, to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. It seems to me like there's better ways to handle that. I do see in here another one that I like, this independent audit every year of any facial recognition technology and reporting on data collection. Fine, but why collect data anyways? Any outside of the metadata you need to identify people? I think if I had to go back in time to when we started collecting fingerprints of criminals, do you think that the pushback was similar to this? This is my like, sort of personal reflection moment. Are we pushing back against this the same way people push back against fingerprints initially, and really it ended up being like not such a bad idea? Or is this going to be significantly worse because of the sort of like dragnet that's available both through technological advancement and through, unfortunately, the sort of, tyrannical leanings of a lot of law enforcement outfits in the modern world? What do you think?
I don't hear very much about this overall. Like another one that was put out there. Remember carding? When people used to, then there was a huge uproar for that.
Ride programs was another one. Yeah.
And so that had a lot of not public a lot of publicity against it, and I don't hear anything along the same lines for this. So that leads me to believe people are more accepting of this. And I'm not trying to state what was done in carding or the ride program as legitimate or it should have been done. I'm just trying to show you when people are against it, that's the result. We heard it, we saw it, and it was noticeable. This, not really.
It also has like a ban for immigration enforcement. Like that's where you could really use this technology, where there's like a flood of people coming across in one or two places or whatever the case is. You could like build a database of illegal immigrants if you wanted to. It's like they don't want to use it for that. I don't know. It just seems to me like it's, and also I see in here, like, you know, the AI has quote unquote biases. Like they're talking about what I would only imagine are racial or skin tone or whatever biases. I just think like the means here, you know, I don't like the avenues they're taking to justify this kind of restriction, right? It's the same kind of nonsense we see all the time. Len, I think the thing I'll just leave you with is I don't have a lot of hope this is going to be, you know, it's going to be well applied or fairly applied or unfairly. Like I just don't. It's certainly not going to be consistently applied, which I think is what any rational person would want: consistency and application for some kind of tech like this and laws related to it. But I can't imagine it's going to be like that given enough time. What on the long enough time horizon so far in the United States has been, you know, consistently applied across providers or culprits? I would say not much.
You know, well, since we're on this topic of facial recognition, let's talk about what's going on in the UK, because they're going to be moving forward, unfortunately, to expand their live facial recognition. And this is the LFR. And this LFR, the usage is going to be put into place a little bit more frequently than it is in the past. They're doing this. They're moving ahead with this, even though the EU Parliament has decided to say niet to the use of LFR in public spaces. I don't know why they would do this. LFR surveillance is being used by an increasing number of UK retailers right now, and this is with the blessing of the UK government. Police forces are also being urged to step up their use of the LFR, and the technology being used is also deployed at public events, and it has already been done so, like the coronation of King Charles, Formula One races, and a whole bunch more other areas and public events. And the UK government, they use the they're saying it's all about fighting crime, and that's really the MO over here. But there are concerns about the accuracy of the LFR technology and the huge ethical issue and the privacy issues that is raised. And I look at all this, I'm going to be very brief because we talked about a lot of this in the last story. There's just a lot of it has to do with more control. I don't care, you know, that the fact that they're doing away with the biometric safeguards, which they are doing away with. So they are no longer using biometric safeguards, or they're doing less of it in place of the LFR. So you're trading one bad thing for another. It really is just more crap that's trending in the wrong direction. It's more data harvesting. It's more of your privacy that's being given up. And for what reason? They're saying it is for fighting crime and stuff like that. You know, it may be true, but what else is it going to be used for? I don't know, but I'm not going to hold my breath. It's going to be used for something even worse than that.
We do know, like, look at every single application of these sorts of dragnets. Again, using that word twice now from the same show, but, you know, look at the application of these kinds of dragnets across the world, even in places like the UK, Canada, United States, which are, you know, say what you want about the sort of quality of the democratic institutions, but they're much more democratic than places you could live that will have similar technology over a, you know, short enough period of time here. And I would suggest that we've not really been fair with the application. Like I said earlier, there's not consistency. This goes, by the way, not just for new technology and new applications of, you know, database building, whether it's facial scanning or otherwise. It goes for things as simple as insider stock trading. We basically allow elected officials to trade on inside information, just don't say anything about it, while they get filthy, stinking rich on NVIDIA calls, right, over at Pelosi Capital Management and other similar outfits. And you know, I look at this and I think, what's stopping these guys from unfairly applying this to political enemies or to people who are inconvenient for the regime or whatever? And the answer from the normie would be, well, that's not how democracy works. That's not how laws work. And my response would be, show me a law that is consistently and fairly applied across all spectrums of perpetrator or alleged perpetrator. The answer is there's not any, period. And that's really the big concern here. It's this story and the last story. Like, the concern is that the people in power know that these tools are available and can make their lives So much easier, right? And as the famous saying goes, someone can guess who said this quote, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And you're kind of creeping closer and closer to that much power. And, as we've discussed in the past, both here and on CBP, you are also, inching closer to this kind of uniparty rule. And when you have a uniparty in charge of a country, suddenly voting doesn't help you. Suddenly everyone wants the same things when they're in power, control and stability and the ability to continue to kind of expand their empire and build their kingdom. And this helps with that. And anything that helps with that should be viewed with a skeptical eye. And I don't think that's unfair to say.
Say niet to this.
Say niet.
Yeah.
Niet.
Yeah. I like that meme.
That's it. I think we're done.
We are.
Good show tonight. We'll see you next week, everybody. Don't forget, sign up to the newsletter, accessoveasy.com, or for this podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, Access of Easy, and visit the website for all the rest of the stories and the good stuff that we didn't cover tonight. Every week, there's always a few more stories to talk about and read up on. And that's, I think, all we're going to say. So until next time, take care of yourselves.
Yeah, take care.